Hi, folks. You're with Tacitus today. Tacitus Day, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio, radio, no pictures live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the activists, particularly the United States. The activists claim that black drivers driving motor vehicles are pulled over at a much higher rate by the police. This is on a much higher rate for minor infractions such as say a tail light that's out, or again, something relatively minor. It's not like for the bigger stuff, driving dangerously, speeding, or something. So, is this so as the activists claim? And the activists then, if you like, a claim they tag onto this is that given black drivers are pulled over, as they allege, more often for minor infractions, that leads to or creates circumstances that lead to conflict with law enforcement, which can sometimes lead to further charges or people struggling or trying to run away or trying to escape or these sort of things. Now, is that so? And we need to look at this sort of topic more widely than just, is it a matter of people being pulled over for minor stuff? And having been pulled over for a tail light, the officer was the police officer was more just pointing it out. And now, the globe, the bulb in the tail light could have blown 1 second before or an hour ago or something. So it doesn't mean that you can say have a weekly maintenance program where you check your lights, but again, it could have happened 5 seconds ago. So the traffic light or the tail light is in my view at least a minor infraction. Technically, they can give you a hard time, but if you if you point out that you have a regular maintenance program, or even say in my case, I keep some tail light globes with me in the car. So if there is a situation, I can just get the globe out and stick another one in. Like I've got a screwdriver there, that sort of stuff. So, but coming back to the pulling over business. Now you can look at this a number of ways, but here's something there's a few nuanced issues here. As best I can tell, black drivers are pulled over more often for minor infractions, and then they do a license and a rego check. But that can happen anywhere. For example, if in Australia they have something called random breath testing, as in for alcohol testing. And you can be pulled over, and at the same time they can check a number of other things if they want, such as your license, such as registration, or even do an inspection of the motor vehicle, for goodness sakes. The tires in spec, or the lights working, and so on. So that can still happen regardless of whether you're black or not. But these are the factors that vary the police inclination to pull over the drivers. So black people tend to have no fixed address, or many, not all, have. So there's many, but particularly those who maybe have arrest warrants or other warrants out against them, they tend to have no fixed address. So trying to serve legal papers on, or get hold of somebody to put them in prison or drag them into the court or something, or that's very hard if someone has no fixed address. They could be anywhere. You just don't know where they are. So pulling them over in a car is a way of locating those people who otherwise are drifters and they have no fixed address. So if you're in an area where there's a lot of black people living, and you see a car that's driving erratically or strangely, or the tail light or something like that, the chances are very high that you'll pull someone over who has outstanding warrants for whatever, against their name, and then you can arrest them and so on. Now, with a white person, a little bit different, because not all, but most of them have a fixed address, so they're easy to find, easy to locate, easy to serve papers on, easy to drag into court, and so on. So you can find them, but there's if as police authorities point out, there are a staggering number of arrest warrants and all sorts of warrants and so on that are against black people, but they just can't find the people, as in the no fixed address business. So intercepting a motor vehicle and pulling someone over, that's got a very high, and it's certainly pointed out to me. And if you look at the stats, it'll bear it out of 100 black people that are pulled over for a minor infraction. The vast majority have some sort of warrant out against them, whereas it would be the reverse with the white people. The white people, you can find them and serve warrants on them, court documents and so on them at their proper, wherever they live, because you can find them easily enough. With the black people, you can't. So this tends to happen at the traffic stop. And so the amount of traffic stops where the black person is found to also have numerous warrants out against them. It could be for anything. It could be criminal activity or, I don't know, unpaid fines or whatever. But they get stopped. Now, this is already then an explosive situation. The black person is able to avoid, because they have no fixed address, they're able to avoid accountability and responsibility for a whole range of things, as in warrants out for their arrest or something. That they're able to avoid all that because there's no way the authorities can find them. But now, with the police officer standing there, they're being pulled over. Now they've been found. The black person realizes that, holy crap, I've got 50 million warrants out against me. This is not going to go well. I need to, run away, or I need to fight with the officer, or I need to, have a shootout or something. So already it's an explosive situation. Not because the officer has made it so, or anyone's made it so. It's just that it's a whole bunch of warrants out in this guy. The guy realizes, holy crap, this is going really badly here. I've got to get out of here, and that then becomes the drama or the issue. And as somebody who may also have already a career criminal type record and a whole bunch of warrants that haven't yet been fully acted on. So that's the thing. That now also you're looking at the sort of car you're driving. If you're driving a car that looks like it's about to fall to pieces, the tire is wobbling, the indicator, the turn lights aren't working, the tail light isn't working, headlight isn't working. So it's looking like, holy crap, that this car is a heap of shit, and you want to do a defect on it because it shouldn't be on the road. Those are more likely to be driven by someone in strained economic circumstances, and they may be more likely to be black, in a black neighborhood. So this is some of the reasons why, but the primary reason is you can find the white people to serve the papers on them. It's much harder to find. Now, I don't know what the numbers are on this, but according to certainly, people that are, say in Philadelphia as a case in point, and this is going back a few years, but talking to a social worker in Philadelphia, and he was saying that the amount of black people who don't have a fixed address, just sort of like a floating population, is actually quite large. It's like a third of the black population in the black areas of Philadelphia. And he suspects, sort of worse than that, and also worse, in say kids before adulthood, 16-year-old black youth, for example, who may have he's fallen out with his folks, so he's kind of a street kid, and he just goes to different addresses, for friends of his and buddies and so on, and just sort of crashes on the floor and all this sort of thing. So but has a number of warrants out. So if he's in a car somewhere, then he can be nabbed. So that's the basis for it. So I suppose there's an element of truth that black people who are driving, whether it be suspiciously or with a minor infraction, because the chances are so high that that'll be someone who has warrants out and that the police are stopping them. Would they do that to a white person in the same situation? Less likely, because the proportion of white people who got outstanding warrants against them that the police and the authorities cannot find is quite small by comparison. So your chances of finding somebody with a warrant against them is fairly slim. So whereas with the black person it's fairly high, or even in high crime Hispanic neighborhoods, you see the same sort of thing. So when you see it in that light, you can understand why the proportion of black people being pulled over for what seemed like minor infractions. Now the minor infraction thing is what the race hustler grifter activists they put out front. He died because of a damaged tail light. He died because he didn't die because of the damaged tail lights. That was the police pulled the guy over and found he had 50 million warrants out against him, and then the guy tries to run away and then have a shit out with the police. That's why he died. Also, I'll add in here that the race grifter classes and the race grifter industry has very much sort of said to American blacks and brown and black people really everywhere that white law, white authority, white police, white courts, none of it is legitimate. It's not. It's morally and ideologically not legitimate at all. So you have a right to ignore it or complain about it, disregard it, and so on. This doesn't help because it emboldens and encourages people who have got a lot of warrants out. And well, none of these warrants are, hey, this is, I'm just going to say none of these warrants are really morally legitimate. So I have every right to assault the officer or run away or refuse to accept an officer's direction. The easy way to diffuse a confrontation with unless the officer is breaking the law, the easy way is either to point out and explain the law to the officer, which is important, or alternatively just comply with their instructions. And either way, you can diffuse the situation if you're knowledgeable enough on the law and can point out, law 99 subsection 2b paragraph 1, then most officers aren't that bright, and so they'll be, oh holy shit, I don't want to tangle with this dude. You'll drag me into court and have me cross-examined by law. So they'll tend to moderate their own behaviour at that point. But otherwise, just do what you're instructed to do. And if you start being swearing at the officer and using bad language or trying to shove and push them, obviously it's going to escalate, and who would expect it would be otherwise. But if you've got impulsive, angry, very angry black youths or black people out there who are told, well, that law is not legitimate, then they're going to engage in high-handed activity. I never realised how angry the black community is in the United States until I first started going to the United States as quite a young guy, in the early to mid 80s, 1980s. And first time I was there, this trainee in it was a fairly big company, and they had like a travel department sort of thing. And there was a trainee there was given the job, and she booked me into it's part of a package deal, but she booked me in this hotel in one of the most black areas of Los Angeles in the United States. So when I went into the breakfast restaurant in the morning, I was the only white guy. And everybody looked up. They couldn't believe it. What's this white guy doing here? But I came sort of as breakfast was really sort of coming to an end. So I'm sitting there, and by the way, the all the wait staff and restaurant staff, cooks and chefs are all, they served up the first dish that came to me, had to come out of the kitchen. They served it up, and it had feces in it. I mean, it was an accident? I don't think so. And the hatred of white people, but anyway, I was sitting next to, and I've mentioned this in another video, sitting next to a black kid, or young, I don't know, he'd have been 18 or something. And his social worker was there, who was Hispanic, and he was on some sort of parole, and they booked him into some like trade course to be, I think it was a mechanic in his case, and he was talking the anger and the bitterness in his voice, because he was at the table right next to me, and I'm pretending to read the newspaper, but I'm actually listening to this. And I ain't gonna fucking lick Whitey's fucking boots no fucking more, and fucking Whitey can fucking Whitey, fuck Whitey. And this was the way that he spoke. And his social worker, who looked like she was off her face, by the way, so just with this half sort of semi-serene, but star, like just gazing into the distance look on her face, and just stood there listening. So I sat there rather listening to this and just giving the occasional nod, maybe just letting him vent and burn off his anger for the day or something. I don't know, but he was determined, and this is a good part. I guess he was determined to become a very successful mechanic and have his own business and take over the universe and this sort of stuff. And that was how he was going to show Whitey. And I doubt he's got the wherewithal to do that. So, having such grand ambitions, but having nothing to back it up, or hardly anything to back it up, is is probably not a way to acquire a positive and sweet attitude about everything. But anyway, so he was there. But what struck me is I don't think I ever, up until that time, I don't think I've ever heard someone speak with such anger, such seething anger. And this was, again, a long time ago, but riots and like around Vernon, the suburb of Vernon, LA, I think it was, had those riots where white people being dragged out of trucks and murdered and all this sort of stuff. Excuse me, this sort of anger is something that the extent of it, the depth of it, the seething nature of it was something I hadn't seen before. So when those riots occurred, not that long afterwards in LA, I wasn't really surprised if that young guy was representative of how the blacks in the area feel. It seemed to be. Then the explosion of this anger was going to boil over, I suppose, at some point. I don't know what you can do to actually quell it or deal with it. I mean, how can you make people not angry that way, given that the anger itself is really not based in any form of reality? But anyway, that's my take on why black people are pulled over, but why they're so angry to begin with, not helped by all this. White stuff's all illegitimate, and you can see how it turns into situations of violent confrontation, if not shootouts, when these people are stopped by the police. You've been fantastic today at your pushback channel. Thank you for listening.